Good day to you one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. I'm excited because it's Comments Day. Comments episode 35. Can you actually believe how long we've been doing this? This will be the 35th time I've reacted open-heartedly to a carefully curated selection of your missives, and I will do so in the most honest way I can. Let's get stuck in. Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Again. Yeah. Chris Johnson with another lovely super thanks. Hi Justin, once again congrats on another cracking vid. You're my favourite thing on the web. Aww. It's got it all. Music, nerdery, hey. Comedy, hey. And above all else, honesty, indeed. So, I'd like to know how recovery affected your outlook on the creative process and music in general. Cheers. Yeah, I don't think I've got a traditional approach to the recovery side of it. I have been sober for 16 years now. 16 and a half years now. 16 and a little bit. But, you know, who's counting? The main thing for me is we can't very well talk about music as a cathartic source or an outlet rather for people like myself who have dark thoughts and stuff in my brain that I just don't understand and unwilling to engage with because it scares the shit out of me. You know, I think men's mental health in particular, there's a certain sort of time-sensitive element to it. I think there's a weird statistic that says when a man decides to end it all within 24 hours, that's actually happened, you know. So just trying not to make that decision is the thing to do. And, you know, obviously in the past there's been a little bit of self-medication and so on. But I don't go to AA meetings or CA meetings or NA meetings or OA meetings or EA meetings anymore. I did for a while, but I suppose you'd describe my process now as writing songs because then it saves my life. I think as a creative individual, I think it's a slightly different approach, but maybe that's unhealthy too. I know we're supposed to look for the similarities and that isn't always easy. Everyone's got to do their thing. But in the early years, I wasn't able to really do anything rewarding with music. And even when I was trying to sort of perform and do stuff, I think for the first 6 or 7 years, I still wasn't happy, you know. I think, you know, when somebody recovers, then they're not, you know, the recovery process starts and you're never fully recovered. You'll always suffer with this. But it's kind of, it's how you manage it really. And I think once you've made a decision to stop doing the things that are self-destructive, then there's a long period of adjustment where you sort of try and find a way to function as more than a mere facsimile of a joyous individual. I'm at the point now where I just really love it. I just love my life and I love music and performing. I love recording. I love collaborating. I love talking about music. I love doing my YouTube stuff. I love being a dad. All this stuff's brilliant. But it's taken a few years to get to that point. So if, Chris, your recovery is something that concerns you, and I think at least for the first 10 years you really have to put it first, because there are going to be times when you're not actually happy. You know, every day is going to be a myriad of emotions, and you just have to, I think, use music as an outlet or a comfort or something or a crutch of some sort, and ride it out really, because it's important to sit with the pain and celebrate all the pleasures and just feel everything. It isn't always easy, but you know what? Nothing worthwhile ever is. So good luck with it, and thanks a lot for the super thanks. I really appreciate it. Matt James in it says, to what degree are you a slave to your past vocal performances? That's a brilliant question, actually, because I don't think it's just vocal performances. It's like the way, you know, the way your process changes over the years with regards writing, playing. Like if you've done something that's, you know, successful or widely regarded as a good thing, like our first record was for some people it might be seen as somewhat of a millstone, or we created a rod for our back, and that's like a benchmark that everything we do now has to sort of be held up against that. And I think that's fair enough. It's good to challenge yourself and to have done something that you can be proud of. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to sort of force yourself to raise your game every time you do something. But I don't actually listen to those old performances, and I like the way vocalists' voices develop over time. They get rounded off, they get warmer in certain areas, and there's sort of parts of your range that you use, when used responsibly and regularly, they can get really like a lovely sort of familiar rasp to them, which is, it's all part of developing as a performer, really. So I would say to not a very great degree, to quickly answer your question, I think you should always aim to be making a game-changing record. You should always aim to be blowing people away with the range and the dynamics in your voice, and just do the best you can every single time. And having done something brilliant on the first record, it definitely requires that. Thanks for your question, Matt. I really appreciate it. Tom Kateri with a lovely super thanks. Cheers, Tom. States, Justin, when you're working on a new song, do you sit and write words or ideas and then search for a melody or a guitar or piano? And do you ever write on piano exclusively? I'll be honest with you. Somebody said to me once that every house should have a piano. I actually agree with that. But sometimes a synthesizer will have to suffice. I love writing on a piano because I'm not very good at piano, so I sometimes accidentally hit chords, and then I just have to keep still and figure out where my fingers are and what it means, Well, another thing I've noticed actually is that when you play a piano chord, the chord, usually the constituents of a simple chord would be the root, say for example a C, and then the third, which would be an E if it's a C major, and then the fifth, which would be a G. Oh, it's gorgeous, isn't it? But if you just play those three notes on the piano, you sound like you've been playing piano for about 10 seconds, and it's not very inspiring, really. So if you're sitting at a piano and you hit a C, an E and a G, those are the constituent parts of a C major chord, but just to hit those alone isn't terribly inspiring. So what I always do is I add a ninth, which is in this instance a D. So when you're playing like you can't see my fingers, you just add in what would be a ninth to any piano chord, and it immediately sounds posher, and it sounds like you know what you're doing, and it also inspires you to come up with melodies that aren't just informed by those of. You can hear how posh that is. It's just lovely. And I do it with more or less every chord that I'll play, like a... That's nice as well, isn't it? Or... So yeah, that's the secret to writing on the piano. Just hammer away at it, and when you strike something that is pleasing to the ear, keep your fingers still and figure out what those notes are. So sometimes I do that. Yeah, I'll always try and find a melody that meanders through the chords in an interesting way. I don't like just landing on the root all the time. I'm not a huge fan of doing ostinato vocal lines unless it's something interesting that repeats over a surprising or less oft-trod chord sequence. And sometimes it is just a case of writing words or doing a poem first. To be honest, there isn't really what I would describe as a process that I use every single time. But thanks a lot for your question. I'm sorry I can't be more clear, but it's just that you never know how it's going to play out, really. For example, the last Darkness record, we weren't in the same country as each other because of the COVIDian restrictions that were in place. So I was receiving backing tracks from the guys, and I was merely top-lining them, which means doing the melody and the lyric as well. So, that's it. Lorna Karimji with another super thanks. Cheers, Lorna. Hey Justin, one for the Q&As if you will. Do you listen to music when you run? I personally struggle to run without it. If so, what do you like to listen to? Well, sometimes I'll just listen to the engine, but more often I use like one of those what's it called, in the aero shocks. I've forgotten what the company's called, but it's a bone conducting headphone. So when you're crossing the road, you can still hear the traffic coming and you don't get splattered, which is obviously an important part of my regime, really, not getting hit by cars. And I do listen to stuff, but I don't really have what you'd describe as a running playlist or anything like that. I'll sometimes listen to, the most recent thing I listened to was the Big Snake, Little Snake audio book, DBC Pierre, spiritual approach to, what's it called? Cascading odds and statistics and how to win the national lottery by believing, basically. And indeed, I did win 20 euros on the European lottery only 2 days ago. So thanks for your question. Just listen to anything you like, really. Just make sure that you can hear the traffic. That's my advice. Swim says, how did you get started approaching guitar solos? For example, practice scales over and over, or learn solos and piece yours together like a puzzle, or did you just brute force it enough times that now you know how to pull off the licks? I think the very first thing that I did was learn that pentatonic scale with some extra bits in between. Right, so I think that's the first scale I did. I've seen people play that scale and do this. I think that's the pentatonic scale. I never called it that. I feel like a lot of the terminology that guitarists use nowadays is all stuff that I've had to learn recently. I just called it a blues scale, really. If you're an E minor, it's really handy. But I never used to do that inversion of it. I always started here. And I'm grateful for that, because it means that I have to slide around the neck just to find this one scale. Whereas other guitarists would just be anchored there, and then if they're required to be elsewhere, it can be a bit discombobulating and a little bit disorienting. But that was a good, first. That was a good first kind of scale for me. And I would learn like licks and tricks like those things. And then runs, just various different phrases. I was very much into learning guitar solos. There's a lot of rock solos that I really enjoy playing still, and some of you can see the way they're built if you actually learn by playing along to your favourite records and trying to note for note some of the iconic solos in your collection. Just play along with stuff, and then you'll recognise that nearly every solo in the rock and blues oeuvres of these brilliant artists, that they're all just a collection of phrases, and you hear them sort of. You can hear how they cross-pollinate across your favourite artists. You'll hear stuff in an AC/DC record that you recognise in a Queen record. You'll hear stuff in a Rory Gallagher record that you recognise in a Queen record. The network of influence is all around us, and once you start sort of playing along with those things, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see the patterns, and then you'll learn how to build solos in that sort of classic-y way, really. And then you'll find ways to put your own spin on it. And also, I think the most important thing is to establish your own flavour, which is in your fingers and in the tone. Dan's just walked in. What are you up to, mate? You all right? Thanks for your question, though, Swim. Appreciate that. Zyko says, what are all the jobs you've had in your life so far, and which one was the worst? Okay, the first job I had was paper round. That was a bad one because I had to get up early in the mornings, and the money wasn't brilliant. The hours weren't brilliant, and some mornings it would be really, really cold. But I had a great relationship with my grandmother, and sometimes if I didn't make it out, then she would go and do it for me. Also, she would sneak Stella Artois into her little fridge that she had in her bedroom, and I'd just go and drink that sometimes. So brilliant. Me and my nan just got on great. Then I worked at, what was it, Safeway? I think it was the supermarket, which later became Gateway. Maybe it became Summerfield. I don't know. It's Budgeons. I was in the produce department, and I was in charge of bananas. So my main job was to shake the bananas and make sure there weren't any tarantulas or other bugs and tropical insects and so on. Because, as you know, being bitten by a tropical bug or insect can be worrisome and also might require medical attention. So I was trying to save people from that at Summerfield / Gateway / Safeway. Then I worked... Then when I left school, I was working with my dad on building sites, and sometimes that involved lifting up scaffolding and moving it from one part of a building site to another part of a building site with no real explanation as to why that was happening. Also being sent to builders merchants to ask for things like glass hammers, tartan paint, skirting board ladders, sky hooks, and all the rest of it. I did work in a recording studio momentarily called Purple Rain Studios. I was kind of like T-boy. And tape. I was doing the tape copies for the bands that had recorded their demos there. That didn't last very long because because I'm a little bit I don't want to use OCD as a colloquialism, but I was very determined to not leave anything off the end of the recording. So if there was a reverb tail at the end of the strike on a song, I would really make sure that the signal had completely faded before the next song. So there might have been like a minute and a half in between the songs on the demo tapes. They all had to be done again, and I didn't work there anymore. But yeah, I've loved all of it. I just love working, just idle hands. No, the devil makes work for idle hands, and I've never had those. I've always had something to do. So yeah, all as bad as each other. The best job in the world is music, so I'm lucky. Thanks for your question, Zyko. All right then, all that remains now is for me to say a super thanks to all of the super thanks people. So Reed Jorgensen, Louis Silva, You Ready Freddy, Renoir, Cammy Hawkins, Sweet Pandora, Johns 3, Rob McVeigh, Tom Kettere, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Lena Boo, Dustin Beasley, Chris Johnson, Kevin Rebel, Mo Eklund, Lorna Karimji, Chris Brownell, Strange Device, Danny Martin, Brad Walsham, Alex Gorley, Dan DV, Teddy Bears for Life, CJ, Martin Brown, A Dude, Tyler Challenger, great name, Tom Kateri, Sandra, Sophie Cheekbones, Dylan D, Eva Katerina, Sally Rose, Douglas Morris, Arcana Kings, Sherry Rich Plant, Ashland Jofel, Rocco Pellerin, Jigs111, Nothing Box, Chris Johnson, Draw Hyatt, JM80, MVP Fly High, David Paul, Criviette, Randy Goebel, Brandon Williams, and Gary Fairley. Thank you so much. I could never express my gratitude to you guys in an adequate manner. It's really awesome that you support me in this way, and I'll always appreciate you for it. Yes, so that was Comments episode 35. Justin Hawkins rides again. No. It's just, these Bixby trims aren't really suitable for that sort of 80s stuff. But anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and watch one of these two videos. Love you guys. See you on the ice. Adieu!